Something a little bit unusual today. One of the nicest things that we ever do as a wider family isn't actually cooked by me at all, it's cooked by Louise. So because of peer pressure, I'm having to stand aside and leave Louise to do her version of the trifle. So without further ado, I shall leave you, Louise.
Thank you very much. Apron with matching name.
I'll leave her to show you how she does the famous Louise trifle.
Go. Right, so here we go with the trifle, which obviously you don't actually cook. Slightly worried as well that people, generally my trifle gets a positive response, but I think this might break the allure of making it look quite so easy, and so people might not be so impressed in the future. But I think it'll be handy to share the recipe. Usually I make a gigantic trifle as well that feeds probably 10 plus people, so I'm trying to make one today that's more for a family of 4, so you might need to bear with me on the proportions. So what we're going to start with is the base layer, which is a sponge, and what I tend to use as my preferred ingredient is just to buy a shop bought Swiss roll and cut it thinly sliced. This is 1 Swiss roll. You can do other things like sponge and just put jam in it, but this is so easy. Then we've got fruit. Again, you can change which fruit selection you want. I've got strawberries and raspberries today. And then we've got 1 tub of custard. Again, rule of thumb here is really you don't really need to go fancy. So this is just standard Devon custard. And then we've got some whipped cream. I've used double cream today and I've whipped that up. I would suggest either whipping cream or double cream if you can get it. Rather than the squirty cream, because that just won't have the same flavour and it won't hold as well with the trifle.
Okay.
Right, we're going to start with the first step, which is taking the Swiss roll and just gently layering that at the bottom. I won't show you all of these, but just how I get started. Probably best tip here is just to slightly overlap them, because you want to try and get as many in to form that nice base. I know everyone's got their preferred bit of the trifle. Some people like the sponge, some people want more custard, some people want more fruit, so you can't please everybody, but I would suggest trying to make sure you get quite a good kind of base layer in so that there is plenty of sponge in there.
Okay.
Right, so we've finished the sponge there. We've got a nice little sponge. So next I'm going to go with the fruit. And I've gone for strawberries and raspberries here, but you can really go for any combo, and you can use frozen fruit as well. That often means it's you get quite a lot of the juice there, so that's quite nice, and if you give it more time to soak through. These strawberries are actually really tasty. I think it's just coming up to the right time of year for fresh fruit, so again you probably don't need frozen at the middle. So I've done what's worked out actually quite well there on that. Okay, that's the fruit layer. And I'll just go straight onto the custard because there isn't really any finesse here. You're literally going to be just pouring it on. I do have a tendency to put too much custard in because I love it, so I'm going to try and be a bit more restrained. And ideally you kind of want that to soak down a little bit over time. I just find with it never really quite looks like you've got enough when you first pour it in, but somehow at the end there's always loads of it. This is only just going to fit in. Okay, so that's the custard layer.
Okay.
Right, and the last layers are double cream, which I've just about luckily got room for. So just spoon that on. I mean, it always looks a little bit like I'm not going to be able to mix it in and it's going to get all muddled in, which is why you need to make sure you don't whip it like soft peaks. Make sure it's really kind of whipped up nicely, because you've got to kind of spread that out in a minute. So I'm going to just pile it all on and then spread it out, so we'll come back in a second to see what that looks like. Okay, so we've smoothed the cream out. Of course I have put too much custard in as usual, and therefore it makes sprucing the cream out a little bit harder, but anyway, we've got there. And then what I'm going to do is put that in the fridge. I would say, I know it's tempting to just get stuck in, but you really need to try and leave it into the fridge for at least 2 hours, because then you get the custard seeping down, the juice from the fruit into the sponge, and it will just be so much nicer if you can sort of resist. And ideally it's a great one you can leave overnight, so then you've done the dessert if you've got friends and family coming round, which obviously won't be now, but when we're out of lockdown. And the other thing, top tip, is don't put the sprinkles on now. because it will all kind of seep into the cream and any colouring will go into that. So really make sure that you just do that last minute just before you're ready to serve, once it's had that couple of hours in the fridge. Hope everyone's going to enjoy it, try it out, and you're not going to be too disappointed that it's super easy to do and you can all make it yourselves. Thank you.